Okay,
That's all we're expecting. So I think
Allison and Rich are here, so I think we're all together.
great. All right, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for attending. This is the Charter Review Committee, February 25th, 2021. Tody, can you call the roll, please?
Annalee?
Here.
Mike Stevenson?
Here.
Mike Wood?
Here.
Mary Starr?
Here.
Karen Shoup?
Here.
Richard Silkman?
I'm here.
Allison Bristol?
Here.
And we also have Jean Marie Katerina and Betsy Gleistein, as well as Liam Gallagher and Thomas Hall.
I have Alan and Leanne is absent. Do we match?
And Nick McGee is here. In case anyone's... Just for the record. All right, well, thank you very much. I show that we do have a quorum. So our next item this evening is the approval of the minutes for February 11th, 2021. We should all have received those via email. And if everyone's had a chance to review them, if there's any, well, actually at this point, we'll entertain a motion to approve those. Yes, Mr.
Hey,
Stevenson.
Nick,
Yeah.
before you do, there's a couple of typos. I don't think it's
Well, that should be in the
significant.
discussion phase. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And it'll take a second on that.
I'll second it.
I have Richard Silkman seconding, and then discussion. Mr. Stevenson,
just a couple of typos, that's all.
could you just call those out for us?
I can if I printed it off. And I don't think I did. I would have to read them. So the paragraph that starts a discussion should be must be made clear, not be made clear.
Okay.
And then I think further down, keep going
Changed.
down.
Yeah, third paragraph, the charge was changed. It looks like that's a B instead of a H.
And then at the bottom of the next paragraph, could put forth an amendment, not but forth. Although sometimes I wonder, but forth might not be a bad thing.
And then I think we have in paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, technically paragraph 6, I believe consensus is spelt incorrectly.
Mr. Chair, I believe liaisons is spelled incorrectly at the top. And my name was spelled incorrectly at one place.
Okay.
Liaisons, present liaisons is just an extra I in there, and it's CATERINA. Not that that's a big deal. I see it spelled all sorts of different ways.
And I'm sure you've been called much worse.
Yes, I have.
All right, so are there any
I had one.
contextual changes that outside of some cleanup?
I had just one other. I just remember when, I think in the discussion about citizens' comments, I thought we'd also talked about the possibility of having a roundtable. You know, some kind of discussion, you know, some kind of roundtable, you know, to better enhance communication. I think there was some discussion of it. I don't remember exactly where it landed, but I know there was some discussion of it. But.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure. I can't recall exactly how that landed. I do know that the chair was asked to submit something to the public, to the newspapers, letting them know that this process was going on.
Okay.
And I can update the committee on that. I did do up a piece. Liam was kind enough to help me make contact with the forecaster, and I believe the consensus was that there have been several pieces already done on this topic, and they didn't seem overly keen to maybe run with it, but.
That's so surprising because the leader is just so full of useful information. Was there no space? I mean, honestly.
No, I mean, I think to their point, they've had they were able to show evidence of the articles they'd already run.
Sure.
So word's out there. So outside of, any substantive changes other than cleanup? Okay, so so we have a motion and a second to approve. Can we just, Mike, would you be willing to make an adjustment, motion to approve with cleanup as discussed with the board?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Thank you. And a second on that?
Second.
I'll,
All right, I have Richard Silkman with his hand up again. Okay, thank you. I have a second motion. Any further discussion on this? No. We'll do roll call in favor. Annalee Rosenblatt. Annalee? Mike is off. You're muted.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Mike Stevenson,
yes.
Mike Wood,
Yes.
Mary Starr,
Yes.
Karen Shu,
Yes.
Richard Silkman,
Yes.
Allison Bristol,
Yes.
Nick McGee. Yes. Thank you. I'm sure that's unanimous. For the purposes of tonight, and as we get into discussions as we go, I'd like everyone to, instead of, it's really easy to flick up your hand, but just for the sake of tracking, and sometimes your screen doesn't always show all of the people involved, especially for screen sharing or something. If we can use the raise my hand feature. I've got the panelist panel up here, and I can see the little blue hand if there's something that you want to chime in on. I think that would help us. So our next item this evening is reports out of the subcommittees. Mike Wood, would you like to tell us how Subcommittee 1's looking?
Sure. Be glad. So our subcommittees, known as Subcommittee 1, charged with 3, 5, or 3, 7, 9, and 10, parts of 9. I don't know if we want to share a screen, Liam, maybe. Do you want me to go through each of the, I don't know, time permitting, Nick, whether you want me to go through each of the parts that we discussed and what are they?
I think what would be helpful is kind of just a status update as to where you are in your process. If you've
Okay.
gotten through 1 or 2 of your articles, if you're at the point of starting to actually wordsmith some items, that would be helpful for the rest of us to get a feel for where you're at with your subcommittee.
Okay. Well, I'm looking over my shoulder because I'm scrolling right now, but we got through all our articles, but we did make a determination. It's now refreshing, but we did make a determination that there were many articles. I'm using the term article, but chapters, in particular, chapter 9, that the subcommittee felt should be referred to the full committee. Such as 907, all of 907, and I think that was at 907. And help me out, Karen and Mary, but a lot of these articles had to do with percentages of threshold percentages for decisions to be forwarded on for referendum or recall or anything of that nature. They seem to all be kind of related that way. So that's really a quick summary of where we're at. The other things, though, we have come to consensus, and we do have some recommended language on some things. Other things that we felt did not warrant change, any substantive change. Mary, maybe you could speak to the language that you suggested through the subcommittee for as it relates to recall.
Yes, as regards to, I'm just getting back into that charter. I'm into the tracker, sorry.
That's all right.
Let's see. Just wanted to find it's in the 9, section 9.
I have it here, if you want.
Oh, okay. If you want to read it, if you have it out, because I'm just trying to find it right now.
Okay.
If you have it.
So 903.1, applicable reasons for recall should be clearly delineated, i.e. criminal behavior, conduct issues, etc. Some towns do have more definitive rules or finite kind of rules regarding these recalls. So Mary offered this language that the subcommittee agreed that was was satisfactory enough, certainly, to at least talk to the full committee about. For example, an elected official may be recalled for failure to appropriately carry out duties and responsibilities of the office, or engaging in conduct which brings the office in disrepute, or engaging in conduct which displays an unfitness to hold the office, or for indictment or conviction of a felony under the laws of state of Maine, laws of the US, et cetera, et cetera. And Mary, maybe you could speak a little bit as to the motivation behind introducing this kind of language to what we have.
I think from our discussions and just from, what we've seen with recalls in Scarborough and in other towns and cities, I think there are issues with the current language. It just says that people need to give a reason, but it doesn't necessarily really give any guidance on that reason. And so, with that, I mean, someone could say, well, Councillor Brown wears a red shirt every Thursday night and at the council meetings, and I don't like it. You know what I mean? Like you could really give some, I mean, not that it would probably have any teeth or go forward, but for me, I think bringing more, bringing a little more teeth to that article would be helpful. And in regards to the ways in which, I think, given that other towns and cities do look at these things more clearly, I think that could be helpful, because I think we've seen in many instances that there have been some issues with that. And so that's kind of where, and I have heard from some community members that are interested in possibly seeing a little bit more restrictions in that language with 903.1.
Seems like our chart lacks, in the opinion of some, certainly the subcommittee, our charter lacks some real definable thresholds that should be met before an elected official is considered for recall. So I think that pretty much concludes our subcommittee up to this point, but we're doing well. When we meet, we're productive, and again, we've referred or deferred, I should say, to the full committee a lot of the articles within Chapter 9 that deal with percentages of voters, citizens, as it relates to referendums and the such. But other than that, we're doing well.
Yeah, and just for anyone listening out there, that section that you're referring to, Mike, was definitely retained by the full committee for discussion. I think we, collectively tend to refer to them as threshold issues. Kind of the numbers. Is $400,000 okay? Is 25 signatures okay? Those are threshold issues that this committee wanted to discuss in a wider body format. So I appreciate it. And then I should, and thank you for that, Mike, and great job kind of getting through your work there. I would offer this up, that I think, I suspect, and we'll hear more reports from these subcommittees, I'll suspect that we're going to hear that a lot of our subcommittee work is probably winding down a little. And so what I think I'd ask all of the chairs to, hopefully the subcommittee chairs to spearhead are two things. One, making sure that the tracker that we've been using gets updated with your votes and your findings. But two, I think it'd be wise to start a master document of the actual charter that we can make a red line version. So if you had a change like that, for instance, Mike, just since you gave me that example, if you went in and actually typed in, with the show the markup feature on a Microsoft Word document, we could see where you would add that language and exactly what language you would be adding. And I think that would also go for a committee chair who found that their committee voted to strike certain language out of a document. And we could start with one, when we get finished with all of that subcommittee work and we need to go through this document line by line on the full committee level, we can see how those document changes are shaking out, and kind of have something hard for us to discuss and vote on as we go through it. So I know you think your subcommittee work's done, Mike, but you're close to, you got a little bit more left to do. That's fair enough. All of our chairs, and we appreciate definitely the time you've put in. So
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Subcommittee 2, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you. So we're charged with reviewing Articles 2, 4, and 8. In printed spreadsheet terms, that represents 2 pages landscape, 29 individual items. We covered 7 in the first week. We've had our second meeting on the 18th and covered 7 more. Generally speaking, I think the conclusion that we came to was most of the existing wording that was being questioned seemed to reflect and be adequate, and therefore we voted not to send majority of them to the full committee. At the meeting that we had on the 18th, one exception, which was in connection with public hearings on ordinances, item 213. It was a comment that was made by 1, 2, 3, 4 different members of the committee. And really, I think what we all finally concluded was that we needed to add some information to reflect some more up-to-date means for distributing those notices, namely the town newsletter and the town website. And I think I drafted something, Nick, you amended it, and I think it's approved, at least at the subcommittee level. And then there was a bunch of other things to do with town clerk's duties, fiscal years, BOE audit remedies. I did update the updated tracker. I think it was this morning. So if anybody wants to actually see any of the detail, it's up on the shared drive. So I guess we're 14 of 29. So if we can move swiftly through some of those at our next meeting, you know, my prediction is we're probably 2 meetings away. And if it feels like everybody else is way ahead of us, then maybe instead of doing them every 2 weeks, we'll do 1 a week and get it out of the way that way. So that's how I'd sort of summarize that.
Great, thanks, Mike. Subcommittee Chair 3, Anna Lee.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. This is Jean Marie. I know Betsy and I had our hands up after the first.
Oh, sorry.
We were trying to behave. So I didn't know. I wanted to clarify whether you wanted feedback as we go along or feedback at the end. And I'm going to suggest now, since we've already gone by that, why don't we wait till we get through each of the subcommittees, since you've already missed us on one. So
Yeah, if you're okay, we'll just get we'll
Okay.
get all the reports, and then we'll take some feedback after that.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Anna Lee.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm not on mute, right?
We can hear you.
Okay, so subcommittee 3 has met 5 times. We made a commitment that we'd meet more often, but limit the amount of time. But we have gotten through everything. We put off some final decisions, although there was consensus among the 2 of us. One of us, because of a family problem, couldn't attend. So we've set up a meeting for next week, waiting for confirmation whether the third party could attend. So we could all be all agree that what we want to do. But we have formed some specific language. It is not in the tracker yet. I had a little trouble with the tracker. Liam got me straightened out today. So by the end of the weekend, the tracker should be all set. Let me just look at the notes. So the notes from our first 4 meetings should be posted somewhere. Are they on the shared documents, Liam?
I can confirm that. They will be up there.
They're somewhere.
Yeah.
I've sent them and I'm not sure where they ended up. So anybody that's interested, we did take notes from our meeting. So there's a few points that we have consensus on. That will be on the tracker. So let me see here from the notes to highlight it. One of the things on which there was consensus, that was a public comment, was about appropriation of taxpayer money for cash contributions to charitable organizations. There is consensus that that should be addressed in the charter going forward, subject to one more review. There was discussion about using taxpayer money for advocacy by either the school or the town department for how to vote, yes, on bond issues and budgets. We did learn that the town has personnel policy relative to employees representing the town are not allowed to engage in any type of political activity. Don't know about the school board, but I'm pretty sure they have the same or similar policy. So the issue came down to the town is an entity or the school board is an entity of whether that's appropriate or not. I think we're close to consensus on that, but again, I hope our last meeting is the next one and that we'll have that taken care of. We fixed some language that caused a bit of a problem this year, I understand, so that when the time tolls from the time the manager presents the budget till they have to act. So we've clarified that, and the clarification is puts in place what actually happened. And we have specific language that we've proposed for that. It was only a change of one or two words. The words in the current contract imply something different than what really happened. So we're fixing that, and there is consensus on that. And one of the suggestions that we did discuss and we never came to a conclusion on is doing more frequent assessments, tax assessments, so that citizens aren't hit so hard as they were last time. I know there are towns that do it not so formally as we do it, but they do it much more frequently. I've heard of a couple towns that actually do it every year. I don't know how they get it done, but they certainly couldn't do it the way that we did it last time. But that's being talked about, and I hope when our full committee meets, we'll have some consensus on that. That's it.
Thank you very much. Jean Marie.
You caught me. Okay, back under the first one on recall, I absolutely agree. We should have a higher standard, if you want to call it that, for the recall of elected officials. You have to realize when you're recalling people, you are nullifying voters or the choice of voters. So to me, it needs to be tougher if you want to use that as far as the reasons. I would also opine that 25 signatures is way too low. If we require, 25% for an overturn of an ordinance or enacting an ordinance, it should be that high anyway for recall. But that's just my opinion on that, because this town, having been put through recall recently, that it was horrible and it tore the fabric of the town for quite a while. So I'd like to see it much more difficult to recall elected officials, because there are elections. You don't like someone, you don't like what they're doing, and you don't like policies they're providing for, don't vote for them the next time they run, if they run again. The other thing that I wanted to mention, some of the factors that Annalise group mentioned, like they were talking about political activity and some other things. Those sound like policy issues, not charter issues to me. Those are policies. I know the town council, we got an opinion that you can't prevent people you can't hold them back from their First Amendment right to support what they want to do as far as, political. But as long, I can be as political as I want in my private life, but I can't hold myself out as a town councilor saying, support this, that, or the other thing. But, I am open to, I think it does need to be discussed, but I would just be careful that some of what folks are talking about, I think they're great discussions to have, but this is the charter and some of that is policy, not charter. But that's just my 2 cents worth. Thanks.
Thank you, Jean Marie. Betsy.
Yeah, so I just on the first one, I've heard a couple of people say this, but I just want to be clear that it's not 25 people. So in order to go to the town clerk, a small group of people have to tell the town clerk that they want to start a recall petition. And then they have a very short amount of time, 20 days, to gather. The number of signatures is 25% of the number of votes cast in Scarborough in the last gubernatorial election. So the last recall did require thousands of signatures to even get the recall on the ballot. And then in terms of, overturning an election, any recall does require another election. So I'm not sure it made it to committee one, but I had put in, I think it made it to the tracker, but I had put in, and I hope this doesn't seem too obscure. So I think the people that put the recall ordinance in this was a big debate when it was happening, did intend for it to be used for political reasons, but they made it incredibly difficult. So the same standard applies if you want to overturn an ordinance that the town council passes. So, of course, one of the things that brought this well to the format was the town council passed a dog ordinance, and a number of people were very upset by that ordinance. And they went to the town clerk, a small group of them, and said, we're going to gather signatures. And then they had only 20 days to gather thousands of signatures. So it is not an easy process the way that it's laid out in the charter right now. So I just want to clear that up because I've heard a couple of different people say that. And then what I brought forward to change for the recall is that there are a lot of towns so the state itself does not provide much for a recall. Basically, you had to take money from the town to get recalled, and that's a very narrow framework. So the state does allow you to specify by ordinance or charter what you want to do for a recall. And so I think, what we have is talking about the parameters is a really good discussion we're going to have in the future. I think that's really good. I think the people who did it last time, 10 years ago, really worked out the issues and did a good job. But one of the things I think is that if we had a felon in an elected position, this does not apply to anyone that is not an elected position. But if we had a felon in an elected position, to recall them, we would still, a new felon, not someone that got elected as a felon, which I think is I support that. I think if you served, people have a right to vote on you, knowing your past. I have no problem with that. But you would not be able to put that in front of the voters without this extremely stringent. You have 20 days to gather 25% of the number of votes in the last gubernatorial election. And I could see that if we have a very high, if we have some criteria, such as some of the ones that Mary mentioned, you're newly convicted of a felony, maybe there's a couple of other ones, you might want to put that to the voters more easily instead of having to do that, because you'd think.
Betsy, I don't mean to cut you off, but
yeah.
These are great discussion points for when we bring up section 9, down the road.
Yeah, you're right. Feel free to cut me off. So that's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to say that was kind of, if they brought forward their report based on some of what I brought, that was the intent of it. But you're right. Better for a future discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And, just to make sure that we try to stay focused because our time is limited. Tonight we want to stick to the ones that we've retained in sections, 201, which are coming up on the next agendas. Mary's, are your comments related to the subcommittee report?
Yeah, so we can wait because we're probably going to discuss those later. So that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Great.
Yep,
yeah. Thank you. It's such a, it's a big document on a lot of important topics, but I think as Liam was kind enough to remind me, how to eat an elephant, it's one bite at a time. So we'll just take baby steps towards this one. All right. All right. So are there any comments related to the subcommittee reports before we move on to the discussion of section 201? Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Is it Tom?
Nick, just one thing, Mike, I'm not sure if I heard you mention, but we had some good discussion just regarding the title of Article 9. It's a kind of an obscure title and the subcommittee was feeling as though it really didn't engender and suggest what the substance is contained. It's entitled Referendum Initiative and Recall. And so we don't have a definitive recommendation, but we talked about something like voter rights, and then maybe that as an overall heading, just to be more, to the uninitiated, to get a sense of what's contained there. So that's a point that we can come back to. And I think, Mike, tell me if I'm wrong, I think we want to bring that forward and have the full committee kind of kick it around just for clarity.
Yeah, you're right. I did go fast under the feeling that, we had short time. So,
sure.
But there are some details like Tom brought up that I didn't mention, but there's more work that we've done. And I also neglected to say we haven't touched chapter 10 yet.
Right.
So we got work to do still.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So with that, I'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak on anything they've heard so far or would like to see us speak about in the future? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and we'll move into our discussions of the retained items in section 201. That section reads, the town council shall be composed of 7 members who shall be nominated and elected by the registered voters of the entire town according to the provisions of this charter for a term of 3 years and who shall serve until their successors are elected and qualified. So, and please, Liam or Tom or Tody, step in and correct me on this if I'm incorrect in my following of some chains of emails. Is we did have the town attorney kind of look into this issue based on whether or not you could make a change in the terms of amending this charter versus like a full-on charter commission. Do you want to, are you able to give us kind of an update of the attorney's findings on what our kind of mission has to be related to here? This is the town attorney.
Go ahead, Liam.
Is this the subject of the distinction between a revision and an amendment? Is that what you want me to speak to, Nick?
Yeah, because I think it really kind of applies here to, I know there was discussion about wards and precincts possibly, and versus how they're elected here.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, did everyone receive a copy of the legal opinion from town council and have a chance to read it? So, effectively the opinion our town council issued was that would amount to effectively a revision. And a revision is only has the ability to be enacted through a charter commission, for which this is not a charter commission. So in his opinion, that falls outside the purview of a charter review committee. Not to say, I guess, certainly for the committee to discuss the merits of wanting to explore that further, but it's not something that can be recommended out of this committee as it currently stands. That's the opinion.
It's worth noting, we had him also look at the tracker, which essentially look at the whole range of kind of comments that have been offered. And we appreciate that could be added too, but we had him take a look at that. And it's worth noting that, his words are, at first blush, he essentially sees nothing else in that range of issues that would fall into that revision category. And I guess the point of bringing that up now is so long as we accept that opinion, really to save you time and effort talking about something that's beyond your purview. So please answer questions.
Yeah. So it sounds like for everything else we've kind of highlighted, it sounds like it's game on.
Yes, I think so.
So, all right, Betsy, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, a few things going on. I'm sorry, I apologize. Yeah, I just wanted to, yeah, I appreciate Phil's opinion. It was good. It was enlightening. So that's good. And I did want to kind of clarify at least what I think, a couple of things. And I'm not encouraging the committee to do this at all. But you know, Liam, and this is no cut to you, but you said that the Charter Commission enacts something. And the Charter Commission, if you had a commission, does not enact anything. Everything that's ever proposed for a charter change, whether it's an amendment, a revision, whether it comes from a committee, whether it comes from council, whether it comes from a commission, always goes to the voters. So no matter, so if this committee said, we don't agree with the town attorney, and I'm not saying we do, so I'm not disputing what the town attorney said, we're going to pass this to council. Council would look at the, the opinion of the attorney, and council would say, you know what, we don't think it's a revision. We think it's an amendment. We're going to put it on the referendum. I mean, I'm definitely not saying they will do that. So all I'm saying is that, it's important to understand that, that nobody enacts anything at any level. Whether it's considered a revision or an amendment is whether it comes out of a commission or not. And the commission is formed, in two ways, either by citizens petition or the town council can form a petition, can form a commission. And one of the reasons a commission is so important is because the members of the commission, some are appointed, a minority are appointed, but the rest are actually elected. So I think the state would say you have more, it's more gravitas that you have an elected commission, and they put forward, they can put forward anything they want because it's coming out of a commission. It's considered, they can put forward revisions or amendments. And then the town council does not get a bite of that apple. The commission itself, independent elected people on the commission, send it through. So I only say these things not to change what we're doing, because I think we've made I'm not saying that we should change anything, but I did notice in Portland, and it's something maybe to consider that I've not submitted, but I did notice in Portland, they just form a commission. And then they have the election. And so that commission does the work similar to what this committee does, but they have the authority of being a commission. So they can put forward to the voters whatever they want. It doesn't take a second pass through council. That doesn't mean council's left out, because on council, we could take an amendment to the voters anytime we want. It wouldn't have to come through you guys. It doesn't have to go through a committee process. We could do that anytime. So our charter specifies a committee so that we don't have to have elections, but different towns do it differently. I think that's kind of important to consider potentially for the future. Portland just says, you know what, we're not going to mess around whether it's a revision or amendment. We're just going to do a commission, and those folks get elected, and two people get appointed from the council, and the rest of the members are elected. So I think, it's something to consider. I thought Phil's advice was good. And I wanted to clarify that whatever anybody does, it goes to the voters. Nobody can act in anything.
I apologize, Betsy. You're absolutely right. Enact was a poor choice of words. That effectively the process is a commission process. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't picking on you.
Well, it's okay. That's all right. It's fair play.
Allison?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
No. Okay. I wanted to make sure I was unmuted. My question would be if the Charter Review Committee has the ability, if we don't have the ability to change the charter to being either wards or a mix of at-large and wards, can we make it part of what we're doing to make a recommendation to council that a commission be formed to explore the question?
I think that could be part of a recommendation from a full committee. But I would hesitate to, based on the town attorney's to attempt to incorporate any language as a
In
change.
the charter,
Right.
but sort of as an aside, we could make the recommendation that a commission be formed to explore the question, so the voters can explore the question.
I think that is possible. I don't see why we couldn't. I mean, I think that's reasonable. Annalee, you have your hand up? I'm sorry,
I do.
Allison, are you all set?
Yeah, I'll put my hand down, thanks.
Annalee?
Yeah, either to Tom or Liam, a what if question, wonder if this group unanimously and strongly felt that the ward system or some change was really very important. So we put it in as the recommendation to the council. The council can reject it, but let's say they think it's important to send to the voters and it's voted in. So what happens? I mean, wouldn't it be in effect unless somebody brought some cause of action saying that it was illegal to put it forth?
I'm not a lawyer, Annalee. I can't give you a definitive answer, but it would seem to me unwise to proceed in such a way. If there's a clear path to do this and do this properly, why not pursue that as opposed to take some risk?
Yeah.
After all, we're meddling with the most important document for the town, and I think that's personally, I'm risk averse to taking chances in that regard. So if there's a clear way of doing it, we should do it the right way.
I don't disagree. I just wanted to go to the nth degree to see what the possibilities were.
I think that Allison's point, though, it would be kind of maybe a tag along recommendation separate from specific amendments that are recommended out of this process, to have a recognition that this is a matter talked about, the fact that it's beyond the purview, but this group thinks it's worthy that the council pursue it, and let the council choose to move if they wish.
Thanks, Tom. Annalee, you all set? Yeah, thanks. I saw Mike Wood had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Yeah, I agree with Tom that it seems like the language from the lawyer is clear enough for me that we should steer away from anything that could be interpreted as a wholesale revision. But I think this committee is in a good position to make a recommendation to have the council consider adding things to its charter, but not be overly specific. I would not suggest that we consider adding a process that can result in the election of a commission for the purpose of a ward system, but maybe for the purpose of all things that could come under the purview of a commission would be better. But so those are my thoughts. But thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Mike. I have Tom, Jean Marie, and Betsy. And Betsy, I don't know if your hand's up again or it didn't go down from the last time. And Jean Marie, so I'll call on Jean Marie now. I'm just gonna, and please don't take this personally, ladies. I just want to say that you two already have a platform to discuss your ideas, and you get another bite of the apple after we do all of our work. So I would ask that you help be in a guiding force here, more than maybe an influencing force. Let us kind of do our thing, if you can appreciate that.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Showtime.
Showtime, go baby. No, I absolutely agree with you. That's why I try not to weigh in unless I absolutely have to. Just a reminder that the council made a clear decision that they wanted to have a committee and not a commission. That being said, I would agree that, if people want to ask the council to do something further, but I would hope that we would just say, okay, we can't deal with that right now. Let's deal with what we can deal with, because that's a lot of work to get done. And then put that aside until we get to the end, because we got a lot to do other than, deciding whether, we're not a commission. Well, maybe we should be. Well, you're not a commission, you're a committee. So use that time wisely, and then see what else you may want to ask the council to do. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean Marie. Betsy.
Yeah, sorry, just, yeah, really briefly, yeah, and the charter calls for a committee, not a commission, so maybe that's something to think about. And really quick on Annalise's question, state law prescribes, and again, I'm not a lawyer either, but through odd circumstances, I've been through this a number of times, that if somebody had a problem, a legal issue, they could, if it passed referendum, they could bring it forward through a process prescribed by state law. And then a judge would determine whether you had done a revision or an amendment. And I think to Tom's point, you're probably, better safe than sorry. So anyway, yeah, that's the way the process works. People can bring forward with a number of days, I believe it's 30 days, an issue, and there's a whole process to follow with that.
Thanks, Betsy. Tom?
Yeah, I'd be remiss.
Tom,
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, and I say this at the risk of complicating things, but if this committee feels so strongly, rather than you pursuing this path, you could certainly go back to council and say, we'd like you to reconstitute this and come at this at a different angle. I would argue to you or suggest to you that that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think there's 99% of work that you can get done and should get done, as opposed to changing course. So I just want to put that on the table. That's an option. You could kind of stop your work and go back to council and say, do you want to disband us and come at this a different way?
Thanks, Tom. Okay, Annalee, I saw your hand was up, but then it went down. You're all good? Thanks. Okay. So, I think after this discussion, I think it's important to raise for the full committee the notion of making a recommendation to the council to either form a commission to investigate, as Mike might have said, maybe broader issues not covered in this charter that we don't believe we have the legal standing to change. I think that would be appropriate if someone wanted to make a motion to put that into an official recommendation. I think that's worthy of a discussion. The second thing is I think we should also take section 201 as it stands and make some points based on the way it's written. I know there was a suggestion in there on the tracker that 7 members might be too small for a town our size. And I think that's something that this committee is charged with taking up. And then the term of 3 years, I know, was also part of somebody's suggestion that maybe that's too long. So, or maybe it was the three terms was too long, should I say? So, I think there's 3 things that we probably should tackle. All right, there. First, let's start with the language we have. And I say that only because I think it's probably worthwhile for everyone to kind of wrap their minds around whether or not making a recommendation to the council might be a more appropriate motion to take up towards the end of the document when we get to when we get the chance to go through all of this and we see how much maybe we have left out or want to continue to tackle. Maybe that's the time we should be making that determination rather than at the start of our evaluation. So let's stick with the language. So we have a proposal for 7 members. Does anyone want to speak on behalf of A, changing it, or B, opposing it? And it'd be nice if maybe we just say anyone who wants to advocate for changing the numbers. We'll just start there. Tom?
Well, we didn't ask Phil the question beyond the ward question. I suspect, I don't know for sure, that he may have a similar opinion around changing the number and or the terms. And so I just mentioned that because I'd hate for you to have a lengthy discussion to no avail. We can seek that clarification and report back. So it might be best just to step over 201 and then come back right at your next meeting, and I'll get clarity. I just don't want you to waste time needlessly.
Okay.
I mean,
Mike. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I was trying to bring it up, but now that I'm on live. Did not the legal opinion also suggest that they reviewed the tracker and there was nothing that concerned
About them. Yeah.
So
Correct.
my sense is, I agree. Like, you know, I think if we change the number of counselors and the terms, I think that is revision territory. But is it true that the legal opinion included reviewing all that we have on our tracker and did not find anything to be concerning?
Yes, that's true. I beg your pardon. And I quote, this is Phil Saucier. I also did a cursory review of the submissions tracker as you requested. And while it was not clear which comments were proposed changes and which were discussion points, I did not see any at first blush that would likely be considered a fundamental change in governance that would require charter commission and revision process. So, touche, point taken.
Well, you know, again, like, you know, I would almost suggest that the legal opinion, I would disagree with some of that opinion, but who am I to go down that road? So I don't know. So there you go. I don't know if there's any other opinion of the committee on this, but our legal opinion so far has suggested that we can proceed as Nick has suggested.
Annalee?
I have a question because I don't have a strong feeling one way or another, but the people that looked into enlarging the size, did you do any research about towns our size? How many council? I'd be interested in other towns, how many they have based on their population. If you've got it. And Karen, where'd you go? You moved on the screen. Karen said she has something, so I'd appreciate it.
I'm looking at
Karen?
Gorham. I'm looking at Gorham, Cape Elizabeth, Falmouth, and Saco right now. They all have 7 counselors with 3-year terms. Those are the
Thank
4
you.
that I happened to pull up.
Thanks.
Scarborough.
Yeah. So I guess my question is going to stand, which is, does anyone want to speak in favor of changing the number of members? And I just want to start there. And with my intent of being, let's hear some arguments for it, and then let's hear some arguments against it. And then I think we all have to, do what we were put here to do, which is make a decision. So anyone in favor of changing the number of counselors from 7, either up or down, just changing it? I don't see any hands up, and I don't see anyone want to speak out against? Sorry, did somebody try to chime in there? Oh, Mike.
Thanks, Nick. I mean, I wasn't really prepared on this, but that's fine. I don't know why. I don't see what's wrong with 7. I mean, you know, the old saying, if it ain't broke, I don't see how that's broken. I think 7 seems to be appropriate. It seems to have worked well. I've never recalled an opportunity, either as a citizen watching or as a participant or as a member of the town council, to think that, geez, I wish I had more. Sometimes I think I wish I had less, but that's a different discussion. Thanks,
Mike. Mr. Stevenson.
It was one of my contacts that actually submitted the comment in 201 about increasing the number from 7 upwards, but I have no idea why. They just said it seemed like a low number. But it just reminded me that wasn't this committee meant to be 7? And then Betsy introduced an amendment to make it 9. So I just wonder whether there was any logic applied to that might apply here also.
We had the luxury of seeing you in the quality, quite frankly. And Jean Marie and Betsy can certainly chime in, but I believe it was entirely due to the fact that we had such stellar, as you all now appreciate, candidates to consider.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, Mike. Betsy.
Yeah, it could apply. I'm not going to give my opinion on the change in the number, but the expansion of this committee had to do with being able to form subcommittees because there was so much work to do. So with 9, you could do 3 through 3. We had the experience of the the community center committee, which was even larger than this one, I think. And their subcommittees were quite effective. They did a ton of work, would bring it back to the main committee. So, you know, we've worked on subcommittees. You know, we all serve on multiple subcommittees, so we've kind of made that work with 7. You know, that's the answer to that. We do have to serve on multiple committees, and we probably would even with a larger number. I would just say one more quick thing, Nick. I just every now and again I'm getting a little bit I'm questioning a little bit, and maybe it's not clear enough in the charge, and maybe I'm just flat out wrong. But I think some discussion should go to whether or not something should go to council / the voters. I think it would make more sense to talk about whether it should go to the voters. The council can make their own decision. But, you know, something you may or may not think is a good idea, you may think, you know, the voters should decide on this. So I do think there should be, you know, a third thing. Maybe I'm for it, I'm not for it. I don't think it makes sense, but it should go to the voters or something. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Thanks, Betsy. Allison?
Yeah, just to share with the group, not to digress, but when I was doing my research on compensation, I also made some notes about the size of councils and whether they were districted or all at large. So Auburn has 7, Biddeford has 9, Augusta has 8, Saco, I think we mentioned, has 7, Westbrook is 7, Waterville is 7, Portland is 5, Lewiston 7, Bangor 9, and Sanford 7. And I'll add that most of what I just mentioned are districted.
Thanks. All right. Anyone else want to weigh in on this? I'll just quickly throw out there. I think 7's fine. It seems to be working. I know there's suggestions to make it 9. I think 7's fine. I'll leave it at that. Any other one want to weigh in? No? Okay. So, and just so you know, we've at the subcommittee level, the way we've handled a situation like this is we've actually used that tracker and the suggestions basically to start. We wanted to be complete about taking people's suggestions seriously. So we would actually, at this point, actually make a motion to leave the number of members at 7, and then a second, and then we would vote in favor of it. If it was a suggested change, we would vote to table it. We would say, you know, we're gonna, and we didn't agree with the change. So if the change was we're gonna add it to 9 members, we would actually vote and say, you know, a motion to table the charge of changing it to 9 members. And that's how we dispensed with the comments through our tracker. That way people knew that we took specific action on it. I don't think that's a bad idea here. I think that could be accomplished here with an affirmative. So I'll throw the motion out there to keep the number of town council members at 7. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call a roll. Mike, you've got discussion?
Yeah, I guess I should say now, I wasn't quite clear, Nick. The alternative you said was to table. Would that mean just to delay for later discussion, or?
Now probably table indefinitely until you had a motion to take it off a table.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So if somebody hadn't made the motion, or if there was a suggestion in the tracker that said, I want the council members to be 9 members. In our subcommittee, if that was a specific suggestion, I would end up making a motion to table, you know, the 9-member suggestion.
Okay. I think my subcommittee, maybe we're not doing it the best way, I guess, but.
No, we want you to do it the way that works for you.
Okay.
We found that, yeah.
Because I might suggest that an alternative motion might be that we not forward it, or we forward it to the council for consideration or something like that.
Well, we're not changing anything. I think that's
right.
That's the idea. So we just, I think for documentation purposes, it'd be nice just to be able to, on that tracker sheet, say, you know, this committee voted on this subject. And
I agree. Yeah.
We like 7. You know,
I agree.
if that's the outcome. Right.
And the alternative motion might be that we might be in favor of a different number, and it would be forwarded on to the council for consideration. But I guess in either case it is, isn't it?
Right.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
So, any further discussion? There's a motion and a second to leave the number of members at 7. Okay, I'll call a roll. Annalee Rosenblatt. Okay, that's in favor. Mike Stevenson.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mike Wood.
Yes.
Mary Starr.
Yes.
Karen Shoup.
Yes.
Richard Silkman.
Yes.
Allison Bristol.
Yes.
And Nick McGee. Yes. Okay, sure that is unanimous. Thank you. That's one item down. Next is we have a suggestion to change the number of terms. So from 3 terms, right? I'm sorry. It's just the term of 3 years. So I may have misread the tracker. I'm going to pull that up real quick.
Tony, is there term limits?
So there are, but it's in a different section of the document.
Right.
Right.
It's section 806 is term limits.
Right. So my bad. Sorry about that. So I guess, let me see, at the end of it, here are the other suggestions in section 201 that have come through. One of them is, as the town of Scarborough grows, is there a need for expanding membership on town committees, boards, or even the council itself? Is membership size based on state law or the size of the municipality? Adding members could be counterintuitive, but based on the amount of interest of our committee, should there be adjustments made depending on the committee's mission and relative importance? So we kind of decided the number itself, but I think to answer the question on the tracker is town committees and boards are set by the council, and I believe I have 2 counselors that could easily, and a manager or 2 up here that could correct me if I'm wrong about that. So, yep, okay. All right, so that one's kind of dispensed with. We have mix of at large and by districts. We had the attorney look at that one. We have a question on whether or not term limits should be referred to in the section. So I would take that as a suggestion to add not just the length of the term, but the number of terms. And Mr. Wood, we have the benefit of actually having you here. Would you like to maybe just expound? That was your suggestion, is whether it was worthwhile to do that.
Well, I think just a few moments ago was kind of evidence that it should be in this location instead of going all the way to over to 800, which I don't have it open with me right now, the charter, but that was my thinking. As I read that section, I said, geez, where are term limits? And then, of course, like you, just a few minutes ago, someone reminded me, oh, they're on 800. And I thought, well, why are they over there?
Would the appropriate idea be to maybe make a technical change and make section 806 actually become section 201A?
Well, can I
Sure.
just throw something in there? I think, I don't know. I think the reason it was put in 806 is because it covers
Board of Education.
Board of Education, whatever. But
Falls
so if
under
you wanted-
nominations and elections.
Yeah. So if you wanted to move it, you're going to have to put it, under town council, under Board of Education, under whatever. So I think that's why it was put in section 806. I don't care where it is personally, but that's why it is in 806.
Thanks. Tom, I see you have a...
Yeah, just to further that point, right now, term limits apply to town council, Board of Education, Planning Board, and Board of Appeals. So if you wish to take it out of Article 8, I'd suggest you'd be needing to add it in 4 other places.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I'll make a motion that we table my suggestion for the time being.
I'll second that.
Indefinitely?
Do I have any discussion?
Till a time uncertain.
Okay, I don't see any discussion. I'll call the roll. Mike Stevenson,
Yes.
Annalee Rosenblatt. She's on mute. There's a thumbs up. All right, Mike Wood,
Yes.
Mary Starr,
Yes.
Karen Shoup,
Yes.
Richard Silkman,
Yes.
Allison Bristol. You're on
Allison,
mute,
You're on mute.
Allison.
She had her hand up too.
Okay, I had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how I missed
Okay.
that.
That's okay. So I guess my question is, so we're not talking about term limits now, but we will when we get to section 806. Is that the idea?
Well, yeah, it doesn't seem like, I think consensus was from discussion in the voting thus far that it's probably okay where it is in 806, and we can discuss 806
When we get to 806.
when we get to 806.
Got it. Yes.
Thank you, Allison. And Nick McGee, yes. I should have, that's unanimous. Thank you.
And
All
just
right.
as a note for the subcommittee that's responsible for Article 8, curiously, Board of Trustees for the Sanitary District are not included in that list of term limits for reasons I can't explain, but it's worth considering.
It's actually the full committee that's looking at 806. So
Okay.
when we get
Thank
there,
you.
we can cover that.
Yep.
And then the last comment we have in section 201 was to, again, establish a water district in the town council. And I think we've kind of gone over that already. So with that, is there any member that is either, have another thought or idea that may have not made it into the tracker, or has discussed something with a member of the public that this might be the appropriate time for that? Betsy?
Nick, I didn't quite answer your question right, that you asked from the tracker. There is one committee that the size is set in the charter, but it's not in this section.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anyone else have something for section 201? No? Okay. So with that, we're going to move our discussion on to section 202. Section 202 reads qualifications and vacancies. Members of the town council should be registered voters of the town and shall reside in the town during their term of office. During their term of office, members of the town council shall not hold any other compensated town office or town employment except as on-call emergency personnel. No member of the town council shall serve as trustee of the Scarborough Sanitary District. If a member of the town council is recalled or shall cease to possess any of these qualifications, or shall be finally convicted of a crime punishable by imprisonment for more than 6 months, the office shall immediately become vacant. That is the section. So there's quite a few areas here, I think, to tackle. I'm going to pull up the tracker. Bear with me, folks. Section 202, the first comment here, and I own this one apparently. Change the crime punishable by imprisonment for more than 6 months. I wrote, I suspect we could tie this into a main class, A or B or D crime. Some people plead out for lesser charges, smaller terms. In general, other than traffic violations and various misdemeanors, I think we should be a little bit more strict here. That was my thought. So I go in on tackling.
Mike, was this one of the ones that we reserved for the whole committee? I don't recall that being reserved for the committee. I mean, why isn't the subcommittee just dealing with us, giving us the red lines, and we'll take a look at what shows up later on? Because if we go through every one of these items like this, we're going to be here forever.
Well, that was kind of my argument for having subcommittees, but we kind of divided up this way.
But I don't recall.
Section 202 was retained by this committee.
By the whole committee?
Section 202 was retained by the entire committee.
Then I stand corrected. I'm sorry, Mike, for interrupting. I apologize. Or Nick.
Yeah, it's sections, the ones you see on your agenda, 201, 202, and 205 were retained by this committee by vote. So we're not going to be into 203 or anything like that this evening. So, Annalee, I see you have your hand up.
I just had a question. Yeah. When this refers to town, where am I reading here? The town council or town employment, that is, town office or town employment. Are the school department town employees, or are they school department employees?
For school department, though, I
Liam's
think,
smiling at
are we
that
going to
one.
get into the section 4?
Well, I don't know. I tried to look over at that. Could somebody be on the school board and the town council at the same time, for example? That's a question that I'm trying to match the two sections.
I'm reading section 402, which is Department of Education, and forgive me, I'm paraphrasing, but it says, during the term of their office, members of the Board of Education shall not hold any other compensated town office or town employment. So the same language exists.
So it's a mirror language, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. That answered it.
Yeah, and you're referring to the brouhaha in the town of Gorham, I suppose.
Or Falmouth or someplace up north,
I think
someplace
Yarmouth.
where they went to court.
Yeah, Yarmouth, there was the case there, which I think was upheld by the court, was that a town employee couldn't sit on the Board of Education or vice versa.
It's the other way around.
School department employee couldn't serve on the town council.
Town council.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we have, we have one suggestion to, do we take this up line by line? I'll just read the other suggestions in here so everyone has an idea. We have a suggestion from Mr. Stevenson. The reasons for the termination of the position suggest the option should be the member be convicted of a crime punishable by imprisonment for more than 6 months. Other towns mention moral turpitude. SACO section 206B3. It's a very non-specific term with lots of options to not be guilty of moral turpitude if you were found guilty of a crime. My belief here is that all elected officials and members of organizations that we look up to and trust should have moral characters beyond reproach. Gorham had an issue a few years ago with a drunk driving conviction, which did not attract a custodial sentence, but they wanted to remove the official, and it was an issue. Kennebunk section 311 specifies prison of 30 days or more. We've got some options there. So that's basically along the same lines as the suggestion I had, which was just taking a look at how we're defining crime. And then we have a suggestion here from Mr. Foster, who's unfortunately not here this evening. I may just need some education on this matter, but is it a conflict of interest for a town council member to be a trustee of the Scarborough Sanitary District? And I believe that's very clear in there, right? I think the line says no member of the town council should serve as a trustee of a sanitary district. So I think that's answered. Maybe his question was why, and he just didn't type it correctly, right?
Yeah. Good question.
Another section here is for vacancies, 6 months vacant. For vacancies, 6 months vacant time is a long time. Perhaps 3 or more months vacant requires appointment and or special election. Same goes for Board of Education. That was from Mr. Stevenson as well. And then we have Ms. Bristol. No member of the town council should serve as a trustee of. And then we lost a little bit. I think it got cut off. Oh, I'm sorry. The Scarborough Sanitary District. If this is considered a conflict of interest, are there others that should be included in here? For example, the library, SEDCO. Okay. And then, Liam, are you adjusting things as we go here? Add morals. Okay, so Ms. Bristol also had add morals clause. Language is as follows: any member of the council who shall be convicted of a felony or misdemeanor involving moral turpitude while in office shall, after due notice and hearing before the council and production of the records of such conviction, forfeit the office. So those are the suggestions we've had from everyone. So I think we have a couple of major themes to kind of pick on. Liam, go ahead.
Yeah, just if I could to posture the conversation there. Section 202 is really about an automatic removal. And so I guess there's obviously a relationship between how we defined an action that can be subject to recall in section 9 or chapter article 9. And so I think that it's really important, if it's going to be an automatic removal from office and a vacancy, that'd be something very, very clear. Otherwise, I think spending some time on, whether it's moral turpitude or the other sort of squishier terms, that really should be further defined. I guess my suggestion might be that be further defined in Article 9.
Thanks. Tom Hall.
Yeah, Liam really kind of took the words out of my mouth. The moral turpitude, or I guess we're all abundantly familiar with high crimes and misdemeanors. What that requires is some sort of it doesn't rise to the level of due process necessarily, but some sort of tribunal. Someone needs to hear that. Someone needs to render a decision on that. That seems really sticky and messy to me. So my simple advice to you is that there ought to be very bright lines, whether it's references to certain class crimes, rather, as this suggests, certain time of incarceration, but really leave no doubt as to what that bright line is, as opposed to leaving it to some sort of process to be defined. And I guess I would also just finalize my comment by saying the recall really, I think, serves a pretty important purpose. It gives a recourse to the voters to pursue something that that lacks that clarity, perhaps, but is rises to a level of distaste.
Thanks, Tom. Allison?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, with the morals clause, the language that I provided for the tracker, the CE language, that's Cape Elizabeth's language. And I think a morals clause is important. It's become a fairly standard business practice these days. And I have read, I can't tell you what town, but defined what it is by what class of crime it was. And I think the other thing that's important is that it usually is, you know, it gets triggered if someone's convicted. So it's not that somebody is just accused, but there is a conviction. And I think that that's an important distinction in, you know, determining what it would be.
Thank you, Allison. Annalee?
Yeah, I'm supportive of basically what Tom and Allison just said, is that it be specific, related, and I think, Nick, you said that too, at certain level of crime. 6 months to me is way too long to be absent from a council, to be when you're incarcerated. I think I would support strongly that that time be either you're convicted and you're gone, or you serve time of a much shorter duration and you're gone.
Thanks, Annalee. Mike Stevenson, I saw you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you know, the point that I was making about moral turpitude is that as a phrase is not acceptable to me. You know, I think it was a phrase that was it was brought in hundreds of years ago, primarily as an immigration law. And if you were convicted of something that involved moral turpitude, you'd be deported effectively. But California, for example, in its statutes indicates that you're not guilty of moral turpitude if it was, I'm trying to think of the wording that they put in there, an act that was unadvisable. You know, it was I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have had that extra drink. And therefore you're not guilty of a heinous crime anymore. You're not guilty of moral turpitude because it was bad judgment, even though most people would see the crime that you committed as being, you know, debased and what have you. So I think it needs to be fairly clear. And I think, to take Jean Marie's comment earlier, I think, you know, the town councillors are held to a high standard. Just thinking about this, could this sort of stuff not be wrapped into the town council's judgment of its members based on their qualifications to do the job?
Okay. Thank you. Mike Wood.
Yeah, I'm kind of focusing on what Liam had said originally. Is this section really talks about, it doesn't really talk about moral turpitude and all that. It really talks about absence. And disqualifying as, you know, relating to what qualifies you as far as being on a town payroll, et cetera, et cetera. I think that the only part of 202 that I think might deserve further consideration is the 6 months. But then again, if you read this thing, it says, if I'm convicted of a crime that's punishable by 6 months, it doesn't necessarily say that I'm absent of the council for 6 months. I mean, it might be fine lines here, but if that's what we're talking about, then we need to focus on that. But I don't really have a lot of issues with this paragraph, with this section.
Richard.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, the way I read it, I don't think the 6 months relates to time absent. If it did, it would apply to illness, moving out of state, or inaccessibility to the council. I think the 6 months was in there to define the severity of the crime that was committed. And I'm perfectly comfortable with it the way it stands. I don't think it's tied to how long you're absent from the council.
Thanks, Richard. Allison?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the operative word here is that if you're convicted of a crime, you cease to possess any of the qualifications to be a counselor. And I think it's defined that the crime that you're convicted of is punishable by imprisonment for more than 6 months. So I don't think it has to do with, so much with the time frame, but that if you're convicted of a crime, you cease to possess the qualities of being a town councilor.
I think I guess the way I read that is it's a crime punishable by imprisonment for more than 6 months is what disqualifies you. And I think I'd ask this committee, which crime that gets you punishable by 3 months are you okay with?
Right.
So I think what the crux of the issue is that 6 month timetable, or how we're defining when is it a seat should be vacated as it relates to a crime being committed. So Tom?
Yeah, I'm just going to concur with Richard's observation. I think it does speak to the severity. Yeah, I don't know if 6 months is right, but I think it speaks, if you're incarcerated for 6 months, you've committed a pretty serious infraction, a felony. But there's certainly other ways to skin that cat. Calling it commission of a felony would be another way to approach it. But I don't think it's necessarily absence. I think it's really speaking to the severity of the infraction.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So from reading that track record, there's really two things that we should kind of, I think, take votes on. One is we have Allison, you did have a suggestion. We'll circle back around to it, which was the adding or maybe defining other areas in town to have employment that might be a conflict, such as Sedco or the library. If that type of language should be included, that's one suggestion I hear. And then the other theme that emerged from that tracker sheet was how we're defining this crime section. I would say, 6 months seems too long for me. I think a crime punishable by 3 months also, raises a red flag in my head. At some point we have to draw a line, right? So is there any level of comfort in just changing the amount of time that somebody is convicted for, or do we believe that it's or I guess not convicted for, but what triggers the cessation of their seat, or whether or not it should be tied to maybe a class of crime in Maine. We have different class crimes, so anything worse than a class, class C or D, or we'd have to get some definitions, I'm sure. Allison, see your hand up again.
Do we want to, I don't want to suggest necessarily tabling it, but I have seen some language in other charters that, define class A, class B, class C. So do we want to do a little homework to see what those different classes of crimes are and then decide that way?
Good suggestion. Mike Wood?
Yeah, I don't feel qualified to speak to the length of time and how it relates to what crime was committed. I don't know. It seems to me that if not true now, just yesterday, participating in a certain activity could put you in jail for 3 months, and we'd be scoffing at it today. So I would think that more homework is required of this from myself, unless the majority of the committee has that background.
Mary Starr.
Yeah, I would agree with having some more research. And I wondered, would we be able to just send this back to committee for them to do the research? Whoever has, section 2, I just thought that might be just to be able to sign that and to kind of know where that's going, and they could bring back that research for us to look at. It's
a good suggestion. Richard Silkman.
The word is punishable. It's not punished by. So, the person could be convicted of a crime that's punishable by 6 months, but never serve a prison term because the judge decides that, for extenuating circumstances, you're off the hook. So I don't think this is tied at all to the punishment side of this. Or again, going back to the absence. This is designed to reflect a level of crime. And I'm certainly not familiar with all the different classes and what is punishable as opposed to actually what sentences are imposed. You could be, you could be punishable for drug use, but you could get off for, first offense, no problem, no foul community service. So I think we have to be a little careful here. And, this may be one of those cases where without a lot of more information about it, we should just leave it well enough alone.
Thank you. Annalee?
Yeah, I support those that want to do a little bit more research to see what kind of a crime is punishable by 6 months, because I think there are some sentencing guidelines, and to just get more information. I have no idea what that means, punishable by 6 months.
Thanks, Annalee. Mike Wood.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have put my hand down. Thank you, Nick.
Allison Bristol.
I still have my hand up. Another thing I was going to suggest is to take the time frame out altogether. So if we decide to put language in that's about the class of crime, then that's it, and it's you don't have a 6 month or a 3 month or a 1 year time frame. It's just about the class of crime.
And that was kind of my thought. Mike Stevenson, I saw your hand up. Sorry, Tom, I see yours. I'll get to you next.
I think Mike Wood suggested that I think it was Mike Wood that suggested we put it back to the subcommittee. Maybe it was Mary. And it's actually with the full committee, but it's part of section 2. I think given that Alison was volunteering to do some research there, and I would help and support. So I think I would propose that subcommittee 2 takes that, and between us we'll come back to the full committee with some comments, I think, in terms of, as Annalee requested, what sort of crimes would constitute 6 months imprisonment, for example, and then equally approaching it from the other side, what sort of crimes would we not want to see our town councillors be convicted of, and as a result want them removed? So we could approach it from both of those sides. So I propose that we take that if that's acceptable to everybody.
Tom?
If that's a motion, I'd second it.
Can you put that in the form of a motion?
Hold on, I got Tom. We gotta get a couple more comments in here.
Sorry, Nick.
Tom, you're on mute.
As a drafting construct, I think what you'll find as we go forward, there's a number of areas where you might be tempted to have more specificity, but that's done by design, is to be more qualitative or to describe the effect as opposed to tying it to something else that could change. Now, this document does, is looked at with enough frequency that you can correct those changes, but I just remind you that I think many of these sort of references are done very consciously as a drafting construct to make sure that they are survivable and still make sense in spite of someone else doing something else. So if you can resist the temptation to tie by reference or inference to something else that we don't control, I think that's a good construct to keep in mind. So that didn't help you here, but it was just an opportune time to mention it.
Thanks. Richard.
Yeah, I just quickly looked it up. just so that you know, Class A crimes in Maine are punishable by up to 30 years, Class B up to 10, Class C up to 5 years imprisonment. So every Class A, B, and C qualifies under this definition. In addition, misdemeanors, which are Class D and E crimes, are punishable by up to 1 year in jail. So according to this definition, any crime in Maine, misdemeanor or felony that you commit, you are immediately disqualified from being a counselor, as long as it's A, B, C, D, or E. So I mean, I think, you know, this is already about as strict as you can possibly get under Maine law. Now, we may want to make it less strict, or we may want to qualify it by saying you have to be convicted of a felony in order to be disqualified immediately. But I just wanted to just clarify that you can't get a whole lot stricter than this.
Thank you, Richard. All right, so with all of that information, it's motion time, I think. I've heard some ideas float around for throwing this to subcommittee. I've heard ideas of just tabling it for subcommittee to do research. And then I have what sounds like maybe some idea of just keeping it the way it is. So who wants to step out first and make a motion?
I will. I'll make a motion that section 202 be retained as written.
Mike, can I ask for a quick clarification on your motion?
Sure.
Did you intend to leave the discussion regarding conflicts of interest and where somebody can and cannot serve as part of your motion, where somebody's made a suggestion to talk about adding maybe serving on the library or SEDCO as also a potential conflict? Or are you just talking about retaining the section regarding crime as is?
Well, okay, I'll amend my motion. I'd make a motion that section 202 be retained as written and not in favor of considering assignment to a library or SEDCO as a conflict of interest, because those two positions are appointed; they're not elected positions.
Okay, so your original motion stands. Thanks for clarifying, which was just to retain it as written.
It is, okay.
I'll second that.
Who seconded that?
Richard Silkman's had a second. We have discussion on that. I think yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Oh yeah, for discussion purposes, I just think that especially in light of what Liam has sent and what I'm sorry, I'm looking for the name here.
Richard.
Richard illustrated. I mean, it's as strict as it can get, and it apparently has served us well. So I just don't see if there's any energy to make it stricter, to hold our town councilors or to a higher standard. I don't think we can. So I don't see the need to change it.
Thanks. I have a quick question during discussion here. Maybe clarification that Tom or Liam could help with. Are members of the library or SEDCO considered town employees or having town employment? They're separate entities entirely, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they correct. Yeah, they have different tax ID numbers, different structure.
Okay. Thank you. Mike Stevenson.
The only thing I'd say here is that I did have a motion on the table that was seconded by Annalee before this one.
Oh.
So I'm willing to withdraw that motion because I'm going to vote for Mike's.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch that.
I heard him say, yeah, I thought I put it as a motion, but so that's
yeah,
why.
I'm sorry. I didn't catch that as an official motion being made. I thought we were kind of still in the discussion point. And I apologize, Mike, if I felt like you I steamrolled you there. That was not the intent.
No.
Yeah. So do we have an official Annalee, for the record, can you read back what that motion was?
Which one, Mike?
Mike Stevenson.
Mike Stevens, yes. he wanted to refer the issue of the 6 months to subcommittee 2 for further information.
Okay. And you had a second behind that, Annalee?
And I did second that.
Okay.
But I think we got that research from Richard. So if Mike.
So we should still take an official vote to either up or down our referral to the committee, regardless of the research provided by Richard. So any discussion on that motion?
Yeah, even though I seconded it, I am going to vote against it because I think Richard's information is pretty persuasive. I don't think we're going to find much else. And I seconded for purpose of discussion to move this along because it's
thank you,
now
Betsy.
after 8 o'clock.
Betsy?
Yeah, so I think Mike Stevenson had a good point about what wouldn't you want to dismiss someone for? So I guess, based on, what Richard said, could somebody get 10 parking tickets they don't pay and have a misdemeanor and you want them off council for that? I mean, it's not great, but, I guess, I think having the subcommittee or even the lawyer weigh in on it would make sense to me. You could vote on it tonight, then maybe have the subcommittee bring forward any questions or something. But I think what Mike said is, there's two sides to this coin. One is basically Richard said anybody gets, is punishable because he pointed out punishable by misdemeanor. And, if you have your car, you don't pay your parking tickets, I don't know. So I pay all my parking tickets as soon as I get them. So I'm safe, but, I think
you get booted, not arrested.
Yeah. Well, anyway, to Mike's point, I just, is it because of the word punishable, not punished? To Richard's point, are you excluding anybody that you might want to keep on there for, I happen to remember, we've had a couple of elected officials at the state level that had a number of speeding tickets. So again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if those are it's a misdemeanor or whatever. If you get too many of them or you go over 100 miles an hour,
speed limit.
Them off, but.
All right, so we have, and just to keep us focused, we do have a motion and a second to refer this to committee. So I see both Tom and Liam had hands up.
Oh, no, not me. Okay.
No, I have a question. I have a question on the motion that Mike Wood put forward, so I'll reserve comment.
Thank you.
Again, I think the question for the lawyer, from my standpoint, the only thing I wanted to add was this language doesn't, and again, I think Richard, you're the resident lawyer of the group at this point. You're the de facto. It doesn't appear that there's an option here. So if we interpret this, and again, this is where we need the legal guidance, as a Class E misdemeanor being punishable by up to 364 days or up to 180 days in jail or whatever, then they automatically are removed. So I guess that's the question I would have for the group to pose to legal counsel. Is there an option to not remove them, or is this compulsory?
Thanks. Any further discussion on having this referred to committee? Okay, I'm going to take a roll call vote. Annalee Rosenblatt.
Wow, I don't know now. I've heard good arguments for both.
This is to refer it to subcommittee.
So I'm going to vote yes.
Mike Stevenson.
Yes.
Mike Wood.
No.
Karen Shoup.
No.
Richard Silkman.
No.
Allison Bristol.
Yes.
Mary Starr.
Yes.
I'm gonna vote no.
So it's a tie, 4-4.
Exactly how we wanted it. Great.
Vice President breaks a tie.
I think it loses, doesn't it?
Yeah, it loses. It doesn't pass.
A tie is a loss.
So we have another motion on the table by Mike Wood for section 202 to retain 202 the way it is currently written. We had a second from, was it Richard?
Yes.
Yes, Richard Silkman. We're in discussion for that. Tom.
Since the motion intends and does retain all the language, this hasn't been talked about, and I apologize for not bringing it up, but it just occurred to me. The pandemic has taught us the ability to work remotely. And I'm just wondering this first sentence here. Tony, what is the connection between registered to vote and residing in the community? And I'm thinking of a snowbird. They have residence one place and they could be registered in another place. I just don't understand. I don't know the connection between the two.
They do have to be a registered voter in the town, and they have to reside in the town during their tenure. They have to be both.
More my question is, what is the definition of reside? Maybe that's the better question.
Well, reside would be where you legally, where would you register your vehicles? Where would you?
181 days?
Declare your residency.
So I presume there's either a federal law or there's some definition of.
Yes.
There's a state
residing.
law.
Okay.
For
There's a state law.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
for me.
Then
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mike Wood. You're, oh, okay, sorry, go ahead. Mike, you broke up a little there. Can you start again for me?
Oh, we're good? Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think most people, when that question comes up, reside, they use the IRS definition of domicile.
Domicile. Yep, I agree.
So I think we're okay there.
And the
Betsy?
state has different definitions depending on, talking about taxes, register to vote, or Secretary of State. There's actually three different things. So to Tom's point earlier about leaving it kind of loose, could it ever be an issue? I guess it could, but a resident or domicile, I think would at least cover it because it's a complex issue in Maine and a lot of states actually.
So Mike, during your term, didn't we have a counselor who was elected and moved to Tennessee? Was that,
We had
but he kept his home here?
we had a counselor that actually, I don't think it was Tennessee, could have been, but we had a counselor that actually began residency in town and actually spent more time out of town in an alternative address.
He finished his term.
But kept an address. We also had a counselor before me that, maybe you're right, did go to Tennessee. You're right.
With Unum, if you remember that, yeah, and he finished his term.
He did. He finished his term.
He claimed his residency in Scarborough.
Right.
Right.
Technically was resident in Scarborough.
Right. He
kept
never
his
gave
house
up.
and he
Never gave up
wasn't here.
residency.
He was in Tennessee.
Yep.
So that, Tom, we've had it happen.
Yeah, again, I was just thinking with working remotely, and there may not be any problem if elected officials are able to virtually communicate and participate in all proceedings. I'm not sure if that's such an issue anymore, frankly.
They could even be in jail.
You're right. They could communicate via Zoom from jail.
Oh, you have to vote again on that part.
But I also believe he did not finish his term.
He didn't?
He did not finish his term for other reasons. but
I'm
he-
sure
I don't
you
believe
know,
he did.
but yeah.
I mean, keep in mind, most of these things you would expect are self-correcting, right? The person will resign, and why would they hang on? So we're talking about some
can
extreme
tell you why.
situations that probably will take care of themselves.
Okay, motion in the second. Any further discussion on retaining section 202 the way it is written? Okay, seeing no further discussion, I'll call the roll. Mike Wood,
Yes.
Allison Bristol,
No.
Annalee Rosenblatt,
I think, no. Too
Karen
many
Shu,
questions.
Yes.
Mary Starr,
Yes.
Mike Stevenson,
No.
Richard Silkman,
Yes.
Nick McGee, yes.
So
Sure
that
that
passed 5-3.
5-3. Okay. Well, we are at the witching hour, my friends.
The bewitching.
So we managed through two of our sections. I will make a motion to table sections 205, discussions on sections 401, 402, and 406 until our next collective meeting 2 weeks from now. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Richard, okay.
Any discussion on that? Okay, seeing now, I'll call the roll. Richard Silkman,
Yes.
Mike Stevenson,
Yes.
Karen Shu,
Yes.
Annalee Rosenblatt,
Yes.
Allison Bristol,
Yes.
Mary Starr,
Yes.
Mike Wood,
Yes.
Nick McGee, yes. Okay, I show those as
8-0.
tabled until next week. And then next motion is the motion to adjourn. Do I have anyone willing to move the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I got to move. I have a second out of Mr. Soakman. Any discussion? No, I'll call the roll. Mike Wood,
Yes.
Allison Bristol,
Yes.
Mary Starr, Annalee Rosenblatt,
Yes.
Karen Shu,
Yes.
Mike Stevenson,
Yes.
Richard Soakman,
Yes.
Nick McGee, yes.
8-0.
That is unanimous. Thank you all so much for your time this evening. I think there was some good productive work. Look forward to seeing all of you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you for everyone's work.
Thank you.
Good night now.
Good night.